Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Aldas, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Ferrari. Now, I think it's fair to say that coming off the back of the first 3 days of pre-season testing, Ferrari do seem to be a little bit underwhelming, and this is something that they definitely do not need at the start of 2020. This should be the season where hopefully they learn from some of the mistakes that they made in 2019, and we really do want to see Ferrari have not only a good start to both pre-season testing and the season, but also give Mercedes a really good run for their money and actually challenge for the title. But as I said, judging off the first 3 days, are Ferrari in trouble both with their pace and the amount of laps that they've done compared to Mercedes, or are they sandbagging and leaving a little bit more behind and not quite giving us the full picture? That's what I'm going to be looking at in today's video. And don't forget, guys, if you do enjoy my content, don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. But guys, let's get into it. Now, before I do jump into the whole Ferrari conversation, I do just want to answer the question, what is sandbagging? Because I'm sure a lot of people that might have started watching Formula 1 in 2020 or started in 2019 may not know what sandbagging actually means in Formula 1. So for those people, I do just really quickly want to explain it. And sandbagging in terms of Formula 1 in that context is when a team deliberately lowers expectations from themselves and the true performance of their car by talking up the chances of the other team and the speed of their car to basically inadvertently take pressure off themselves. It's a way to keep both the media and the other teams, and maybe fans as well, I suppose, to an extent, basically guessing their true pace and at the same time putting more unwanted pressure on other teams. Now, the most recent example of what I would call sandbagging in Formula 1 has to go to Mercedes, who, by the way, are just the kings of sandbagging. Ever since the hybrid era started in 2014, it's almost like they're sandbagging every single season to kind of take pressure off their shoulders. And yet again, in 2019, as we saw last year, they were at it as usual. So in 2019, Ferrari undoubtedly had a very good start. They came into the preseason test, did some good times and some good laps, whilst Mercedes were kind of hiding their lap time in week one from their car, but yet again, were doing a lot of laps and still had a very good session. However, they just had to go at it, and both of their drivers came out and said, Valtteri Bottas, for example, he said that Ferrari were a little bit ahead of Mercedes, whilst Lewis Hamilton came out and said that Ferrari were very strong during preseason testing. And you thought that this would kind of be the end of it from Mercedes, but no, even further into preseason testing, Lewis Hamilton then came out and said that Ferrari are as much as half a second ahead of Mercedes. Yeah, I wonder how that one turned out for Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes in 2019. Now, as usual, the media kind of took Lewis Hamilton's word of this whole half-a-second gap between Mercedes and Ferrari, and they completely ran with it. I said at the time, after preseason testing, I predicted that Ferrari might be a little bit ahead of Mercedes, but definitely not half a second, and made a specific video because the media just went absolutely crazy, and I said at the time that Mercedes yet again were playing with the media and with all of the fans, getting their hopes up that Ferrari were quicker, and once again, I mean, we all know exactly how 2019 turned out, so it kind of draws a little bit of comparison, and that is the biggest example of sandbagging. And is this what's going on with Ferrari in 2020? Well, just looking at the first 3 days, it doesn't look like they've got off to the best of starts. And looking at the stats compared to them and Mercedes, because at the end of the day, they need to be up there. They need to be fighting for that title, and they need to be comparable with Mercedes. But again, in the first 3 days, you can see here, Ferrari have only managed to do 354 laps compared to Mercedes, almost half 1,000 with 494. And even with the best times, and again, you can't look too much into the times, but at the same time, and I said this in my review, you still want to be able to do those really good times if you're asked, because that is kind of your quali pace. That is some actual pace of the car and something that you can show that actually the car is performing when it is on low fuel and when you really need to give it the beans and get the best out of it. And again, you can see obviously Valtteri Bottas set the best time at the moment of a 1:15.732 on the C5 tyre, while Sebastian Vettel has Ferrari's best time of a 1 minute 18.154, although it is on the C4 tyre, so there is still more to come from the tyre side of things, but even so, that is still quite a big gap to only a one compound, but massive pinch of salt. We don't know engine modes, we don't know fuel loads, and we don't know what programs they're running as well. So it's unsurprising that after the first 3 days, there was quite a lot of questions surrounding Ferrari. Their reliability, their times, the amount of laps that they did. They weren't even really on Red Bull's level. So of course, Mattia Binotto did have to answer quite a few questions from the media regarding, are they sandbagging? Are they in trouble? In an interview with the media, Mattia Binotto was very truthful and, to be honest, said quite a bit about Ferrari's situation at the moment without revealing too much to the other teams and not giving too much away as well. So he started off by saying, looking at the delta pace and eventually what we may assess in terms of fuel load, which you never know in terms of engine modes, etc. Looking at the picture relative to ourselves, I think we are not as fast as they are. I'm not as optimistic as last year. The others are faster than us at the moment, I believe. How much faster? I think it's really difficult to judge. We will go through all the data in the next days, but I don't think we are as fast as them at the moment. Do we have any concerns? Certainly yes, we are not as fast as you would like to be, but I think it's really too early stage to define them and to understand. So these 3 days for us have been very important because at least we have collected all the data now to have a clear picture and better understanding. What will be even more important is to make sure that we are developing the car in the right direction. Having said that, it's a very long season, 22 races potentially, so I think there will be time as well to recover eventually. But let's wait for next week and let's wait for Australia before to assess what's the true performance of everybody. So I think that was a very fair and honest assessment by Mattia Binotto, and do I think they're sandbagging or are Ferrari genuinely in trouble? Well, I definitely don't think they're sandbagging because this is not what Mercedes did last year, and the main thing about that is laps. At this point last year, and just remember by the way, in 2019, there was an extra 2 days of testing, one more day in week 1 and one more day in week 2. And the really big difference is that whilst Mercedes were bigging up the chances of Ferrari and their lap times, they still managed at the end of week 1 to head the table in the amount of laps that they did on 606 after 4 days, beating Ferrari whilst at the same time still talking up Ferrari's pace and just how much better their car was. And we know exactly what happened. Mercedes turned up in the second week with a B-spec car that they were ready to use before preseason testing, and we saw some more real and true pace. And then when we got to the start of the season, pole for Lewis Hamilton and 5 1-2s in the first 5 races by Mercedes. So this is why I come to the conclusion that Ferrari are definitely not sandbagging because they know they should have done more mileage. You don't just hide pace and just don't decide to do a whole load of mileage. They've clearly underachieved in terms of their targets and the amount of miles and the laps that they wanted to do. But at the same time, Ferrari are also not in massive trouble. They're not in crisis after the first 3 days because Ferrari also have a lot of positives to take away from the first 3 days. Sebastian Vettel on the final day did get the fastest speed in the speed traps of 204.4 miles per hour, which was quite a long way ahead of anyone else. So clearly they do still have a good engine, although again, we don't know the engine modes and what everyone is running, but they do still have a good engine and a good base to start with. Their drivers also look very motivated and very confident as well about their brand new season, their brand new car. And you've got to remember, the car is not terrible by any stretch, although at the moment it's not quite on the level of the Mercedes and even the Red Bull at this stage of testing. Like Mattia said, they're not giving up now. There is still 3 more days of testing and a fair few weeks left until the 15th of March and the Australian Grand Prix. And what we've also got to remember is that for 2020 they're still understanding their car, because although it wasn't a brand new concept but an evolution, I think it's fair to say that it was kind of the biggest change out of any of the other teams. They really added a lot of major aero upgrades compared to last year. So they're still kind of figuring out the car. They've got a good engine, but they're trying to put on efficient downforce that they can use throughout the entire season, and that will help them with tire cooling and everything that they struggled with in 2019. So as much as it's been a rocky start for Ferrari, I think it's way too early to say that they're struggling, that they're in trouble, or that there's massive chaos, or that there's massive panic at Ferrari. Undoubtedly, they have been underwhelming a little bit, but once again, don't count Ferrari out. It is a very long season, but certainly they are going to have a much stronger week and bounce back in week 2 of preseason testing, getting ready for the 2020 season, where they will be hoping to bring both the drivers and the constructors title back to Maranello. Well guys, there you go. That is my video looking at Ferrari after the first 3 days of pre-season testing. Now, as usual, the caveats during testing are you can't read always too much into the times and into pretty much everything that you see, because the teams are always trying to hide what they're trying to do. But at the same time, you can't ignore the fact when it doesn't look like Ferrari aren't doing as well as they should do. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Ferrari's situation after the first 3 days? And do you think they will be able to bounce back in week 2, hopefully show a little bit more performance and a little bit more consistency on those long runs? And what do you think are their chances in 2020? I really look forward to seeing what you guys think in the comments below, and I really do hope that you did enjoy this video. And if you did, don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.